Everybody, welcome in to Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. My name's Brandon Adams, and this truly is a Christmas or holiday miracle, if you will. We've got the entire crew all under one roof. It's sort of like when your whole family kind of comes back for the big holiday meal. We've got that going on for you today as part of Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. Season winding down. Why not get everybody together here? And it's also a sign of the times in which I know there's at least one game, I believe maybe two, that we'll actually pick for the second time today, as these games actually try to get played this weekend after not having that happen before. So over the course of our show, we'll hear from Mike Griffith and Jeff Sintel and Connor Riley in person on the broadcast, and Dari Payro from R.S. Andrews. Always great to welcome you in, as well, as it was a tough week on those betting streets last week around the SEC in college football, was it not?
Brutal. Tough slate. Even on my own picks outside of the SEC, it was a brutal Saturday for me.
Indeed. So we will update the standings here on where things are at the moment, and then we'll dive into this week's games and remind you how our game is played. When you look at the season-long campaign, you see Mike Griffith at 46-35 on the year. Mike giving back some games a week ago, just 3-3 on the week. But the rest of the folks not exactly able to take advantage of that. Jeff Sintel did have a winning week at 4-2. That puts him at 41-32 on the year. Dari Payro, 1-5 last week, slips a bit there to 42-39, but still a solid winning record for Dari on the year. Connor Riley lost his winning edge last week, 2-4 a week ago, puts him at 40-41 for the season. Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers, they also took it on the chin to the tune of 2-4. That puts them, unfortunately, on the other side of the 500 mark now for the season at 36-37. And me, hey, for another week, I find a way to avoid a losing week, but can't make up much ground that way either. 3-3 at 38-43, down at the bottom of the standings for the season. That is Go With The Flow update here on Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. By the way, if you're wondering how our game is played, here's how it's going to go. In just a moment, you'll hear from Mike Griffith and Jeff Sintel and Connor Riley. As I said, our Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers, I'll weigh in with my thoughts to the extent that's worth anything. And we will establish a flow or a consensus for the games that will be played for the upcoming week. And then Dari is going to decide if he wants to go with the flow and join that consensus. And our invitation to you, as it has been all season long, is to play along with us with your own thoughts about how the games this weekend will unfold. Before we dive into and start getting those picks, let me remind you that all of this is made possible by our friends at R.S. Andrews. Air conditioning, heating, plumbing, electric. You can trust them to handle all those systems around your house. And at a time in which most of us are kind of checking in from our homes here today, it's a great reminder of how nice it is to be at home during the holiday season and feel the warm, toasty air that comes from a heating system that's working the way that it's supposed to be. If you're concerned that yours won't make it through the winter that it's on its way, or if you've got people coming over for the holiday season and you're afraid they won't be as comfortable as you want them to be, get the peace of mind you deserve by getting your system tuned back up to factory fresh specs. Find R.S. Andrews online at rsandrews.com, and that'll set in motion the process that'll allow them to take good care of you, do more than just satisfy you. They're going to put a smile on your face. That's what R.S. Andrews can do. You can find them online at rsandrews.com. All right, let's begin here with the Georgia Bulldogs finally getting back in action. Now, last week we picked the Georgia Vanderbilt game. The game ultimately did not end up taking place, so just kind of toss it out. It is not a part of our game, so who knows if we were right about that game or not. It just disappears into the ether. However, Georgia going to Columbia, Missouri on Saturday, take on the Missouri Tigers. Missouri fresh off a win against Arkansas in the Battle Line rivalry game last Saturday. Georgia, as we said before, not a chance to play a week ago. All of the Dogs were victorious at Columbia against South Carolina in the game prior to that. Bulldogs also 13-point favorites on the road here at Faurot Field. So with all of that as the backstory, Mike Griffith, why don't you start us off? Your thoughts on Georgia, 13-point favorites at Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri's won 5 out of 6 games and scored 91 points in the last 2 games. That's pretty impressive. The quarterback's playing well. Talked to their beat writer this week. Missouri playing for something, right? Back in the top 25. That means your highlights are on ESPN every week. And what a great way that would be for the Tigers to end their season with a big win over Georgia that would cement them as a top 25 program. Georgia playing for something too. JT Daniels, a quarterback, has kind of sparked the offense. Kirby Smart, his defensive coaches, trying to kind of gear down on this young quarterback that Missouri has. I'm going to take Georgia to win this game 38-24 in Columbia.
All right, so Mike's got a cover there for the Georgia Bulldogs. Jeff Sintel, what do you think?
Wow, Mike's right on the line. I think the number is 13. I like the addition here. Georgia getting Jordan Davis back. That's what Mike Griffith's reporting this week on Dog Nation has told us. I like the fact that you're hearing, let me use a Brandon word, ethers of having Kendall Milton back as well. I think that adds a little bit more juice to Georgia on offense and defense. This feels to me Georgia's in better shape than the original arranged game with Missouri. I like Georgia by about 17 to 20 points here. So I see a Georgia cover.
A lot of Georgia thus far. Connor Riley, what do you think?
I'm going to take Georgia as well here. If this were maybe 14 and a half, I'd probably maybe consider Missouri a little bit more. But this Missouri team's actually pretty thin on the defensive line, and that's not a very good recipe against what looks to be a physical Georgia team. I know Georgia's going to have a new center this week, but I still like Georgia to cover just enough in this game.
87% of the Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers, they agree too. Big number taking the Dogs here in this one on the road against Missouri. I'm going to take Georgia here too. And I'm going to kind of lean on Georgia's history of Faurot Field there in Columbia, where Dogs have had no problem in the past. Now, some of the distance past here certainly doesn't matter for Saturday's game, but this is a stadium in which Georgia has been comfortable. Georgia's never lost at Missouri. Only one of those games was even decided by fewer than double digits. You have to go back to 2016 for that. This was the site of Nick Chubb's coming out party in 2014. This was the old man football game back in 2012. This was a 2-touchdown win for Georgia back in 2018. And I see something along those same lines, on Saturday as well. What it comes down to for me is motivation. And this is a game in which I do believe that Georgia has a lot of motivation to show some teeth here near the end of the season. Who knows what happens on December 19th. So I'm going to take Georgia here minus the 13 points. And that is a clean sweep in favor of Georgia. Dar, are we making it sound too easy? You want to go with the flow and take the Dogs?
Does sound easy. I mean, Mizzou has been good at home. They've covered a lot of games at home, not only this year, but last year. Last week, they didn't get it done. They came close. But, I like Georgia as well. I think JT 5-star is going to sling it around a little bit. The offense is starting to get more cohesive, looking better. I think it's a pretty good test for them to see if Georgia can get that running game going and to continue to be efficient against Missouri's defense. I think the key to this game for Georgia to cover is going to be their defense. They're giving up a lot of short passes and crossing and slant routes. Not really giving up the big play, but they give up a lot of yardage underneath. So hopefully they can lock that down and get a cover.
Dari, do you know what seems like 100 years ago? Is Missouri going on the road to Tennessee in week 2 and absolutely getting just walloped by the Vols there on the road. First of all, I don't think that Missouri's played a road game since then. At least doesn't seem like they have. And also they haven't played nearly that badly since then. Hard to imagine this was once a team in Missouri that was getting just absolutely, had it fed to them by Tennessee near the beginning of the season.
Yeah, unbelievable. That's a head scratcher. And what's even more is I think that's one of only 2 games that Tennessee scored more than 20 points all year.
Yeah.
So definitely crazy.
All right, so that's how we get things going off and running here on Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. We'll turn our attention now to a team that has been on fire for weeks and weeks and weeks. The number 1 team in the land, the Alabama Crimson Tide, heading to Fayetteville to take on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Arkansas did lose in heartbreaking fashion its rivalry game last Saturday against Missouri, but it was another game which the Hogs found a way to cover the 3-point spread. So be careful here with Arkansas, who hasn't always won, and in some cases you blame the rest for that, but it's found a way more often than not to be on the right side of the point spread thus far this season. But it's a huge number here, 32 on the road for the Crimson Tide. Mike Griffith, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that number's too big, and yeah, I saw that. I was happy that Missouri won until I realized they didn't cover. That was one of my picks I missed. I thought but that was a shootout. I don't think this is as much a shootout. Nick Saban is a master at having his team ready to play when they need to play. I don't think there's any reason you shoot all your bullets and go crazy in a game like this when you've got Florida in the SEC championship. I think you take guys out maybe a little bit earlier than you normally would. So I'm going to give the Hogs the cover. And sorry, Sam Pittman. I think the coach of the year is in this game, but I think he's wearing crimson white. I think you got to give Nick Saban credit for going through the COVID crisis. He was missing 2 coaches last week. He wasn't able to coach in 1 game. He had the whole Georgia prep from his house. I think Nick Saban is the SEC coach of the year, and Sam Pittman loses this game 41-13, but does get the cover.
Brief confession here. It was tough for me to count a win for Jeff Sintel last week with Arkansas, even though he was on the right side of that game, considering the fact that he called for Arkansas to have the outright 2-touchdown win. But there's no accounting for that in the standings. So Jeff did get the W last week with the Hogs. What do you think about Arkansas this time, Jeff, plus the 32 at home?
I don't know. I think if Mike's point, if Arkansas stays within the number, makes this a 17 to 20 point game, I think that adds more credence and credibility to Sam's status as SEC Coach of the Year. I know some of our friends down in Gainesville that root for that program would love to see some votes there for Dan Mullen. But for me, man, Devonta Smith, it's just like Alabama can name their point spread. I think Devonta Smith right now is counting his stats or just naming his stats. 15 touchdowns already in this SEC-only shortened year. I think, again, like you saw this week, is Felipe Frank's going to be there for Arkansas all this week? Will we see some of KJ Jefferson? I like Alabama. I like Alabama in a big way. I like the Tide to cover, and I like them to goose those Heisman numbers even further for a couple of their star performers.
So, Jeff, on Bama. Connor, how about you?
Yeah, before BA comes in and lectures about how good Arkansas has been against the spread this year and why they're likely to cover this 30-point spread, Alabama has covered in 6 straight games. They can name their score. If they want to score 70 points in this game, I think they can. They're not going to want to, but I still think they're going to beat Arkansas by more than 32 points in this game. Give me Alabama to cover that number.
Dog Nation Daily audience agrees 91% take Alabama here too. And, listen – first of all, I would not actually bet this game because I think whether it's Alabama by 35 or Alabama by 30, we're hanging right there on the point spread one way or another. And in the real world, there's not that much of a difference between those two outcomes anyway. This is a very, very difficult game to handicap at that high of a spread. And I am really tempted here to take Arkansas because Arkansas has been so good for the most part against the number thus far this season. However, I don't think Alabama's that worried about playing week before the SEC championship because in most years they'd be doing that anyway. They'd be playing a rivalry opponent like Auburn, which is a game they want to win. And I just think they're so good right now that they have a hard time taking their foot off the gas because they are just that good. I lost some games earlier in the year going against Alabama, so I physically can't go against them right now. I don't love them plus 32. That just seems like about a point or two too high, but I want to be wrong by having picked Alabama as opposed to being wrong having picked against them. So I'll take Alabama. I don't love this pick at all, but the flow is also on the side of Alabama as well. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the Crimson Tide?
Listen to me closely. Arkansas is going to win the coin toss. That's about it. They're going to win the coin toss. Both these teams have been covering machines. Alabama is a buzzsaw right now. Typically, I go with the Tide, but on this game, I'm going to take Arkansas to cover just because I think Saban knows he doesn't want anything to get in the way. They don't need style points. They don't need to put up anything else here. They just need to get nice, comfortable lead. He's going to get all these backups. They're going to come in like the third quarter. All the stars are going to be rested. They're going to gear up for the SEC championship and the national championship run.
I think that's the right side. I just don't have the guts to take it. You like first half number here again, Dari?
Maybe in this game. I mean, I'd really just stay away from this game completely. I don't like a first half or second half. I think Arkansas has enough fight. I think Arkansas can score enough. I think Alabama probably hangs around 50 points in this game, but I think Arkansas has enough offense to put up somewhere in the 28, 27 points, somewhere around there.
I thought Kendall Brawl's performance last week with the backup quarterback was really pretty impressive. So that's the scenario on that. Vanderbilt looks like they want to play some football this week. They get a chance to host Tennessee. Commodores are 15-point home underdogs. Boy, it's hard to imagine Tennessee being favored that much against anybody right now until you see what's going on there with Vanderbilt. But nonetheless, it is a rivalry that is played every year, and it matters to a lot of folks there in the Volunteer State. So, Mike Griffith, you've probably seen this one in person a number of times. What do you think about the Vols giving 15 in Nashville to the Commodores?
Yeah, I think that's too much just because of the struggles that Tennessee has. Jared Garantano apparently done for the year there. Look for him to enter the transfer portal any day now.
Wait, isn't he like 30 years old? Is he coming back to play more college football?
I think he's going to end up and he could end up somewhere in the SEC. I actually,
if you told me he was going to coach next year, I think I might believe that.
Yeah, I think Garantano could be an asset to the right program. But I just don't think that I think Vanderbilt's going to come close on this, though. Vanderbilt plays when they want to play. They show up when they want to, right? They showed up and gave Texas A&M all they wanted. They decided they didn't want to show up and play in Athens last week. But this is a game that matters to them. Talking to their beat writer, he fully believes that had the SEC not played God with their schedule and swapped Missouri with Tennessee, that Vanderbilt could have been primed for an upset over Tennessee. Instead, they were disappointed and went down and laid down on the road against Missouri. They'll be up for this game, though. So I'm going to take Tennessee to win, but it's going to be close. Let's make it 20-17, Tennessee and Nashville.
Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess I'll try and be succinct here, even though this has waves of the Hugh Freeze Bowl potentially. Vanderbilt wins this game. I wonder what that means for Jeremy Pruitt's future at Tennessee. I don't know if Vanderbilt's going to win. I do think that Vanderbilt will cover this spread. I think somewhere around 7 to 12 points is the margin here for the Vols. A little bit of Harrison Bailey, maybe a little bit of run game. Give me Vanderbilt with that comfortable 13 points right there.
Everybody all over Vanderbilt was probably not what a lot of folks had on their home game bingo version of Go With The Flow here. But nonetheless, Connor, what do you think?
Vanderbilt is not worth my time. They are not worth my pick. I've been wrong on them all season. I am picking Tennessee to cover here, and if I am wrong, that means Tennessee plays a close game. But ultimately, I think Tennessee wins comfortably, and Cade Mays gets his first win as a contributor in Tennessee.
A split decision. By the way, that's a very interesting stat. Split decision from our audience, but by a narrow margin, they are on Tennessee. Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers, 51% on the Vols here. Here's a little known fact. Vanderbilt's actually covered in 3 of its last 4 games. They got completely blown out by Missouri the last time they played. Prior to that, Commodores had covered 3 straight. So it's not an impossible ask for Vanderbilt to keep it somewhat close. And against a bad team like Tennessee, right now, that's exactly what Tennessee is. The task is made all the more imaginable, if you will. 15 points is actually kind of a lot of points here. I'm on Vanderbilt too, Dari. Believe it or not, the flow is on Vanderbilt by a narrow margin. You want to go with the flow and take the Commodores plus 15?
Unbelievable. I think that's the first all year that the flow's been on Vandy.
I think you may be right.
Yeah. Tennessee's struggled to get offense. They've struggled on third downs. When you look at the whole season, Vandy's been, better at times than Tennessee offensively. This is a tough game for me to kind of pin at 15 points. Tennessee's failed to score 20 points in their past 5 games. So for them to cover that number, they're probably going to need to score in the 30s. I think that's too much. Believe it or not, also Vandy's won the last 3 out of 4 times that they played against Tennessee. So I'm taking Vandy. I'm going to go with the flow. I'm more interested in this game at looking at prop bets on, Sarah Fuller and does she get an attempt to make a field goal? Yeah. How many field goals? How far field goals? I think those are some fun bets to look at this week.
Yeah, that's worth paying attention to for sure. The other team in the SEC championship, we talked about Alabama earlier, their opponent from the SEC East, Florida, gets a chance to host its yearly rival, LSU. This is not in the original date this game was scheduled to take place, but it is on the slate here for this particular Saturday. Of course, Tigers reeling after getting beaten badly by Alabama and really all kinds of lost momentum for the national championship season for LSU. For Florida, they've been okay as of late, but not great, and trying to keep pace with the Alabama Crimson Tide and possibly bolster the Heisman status potentially for quarterback Kyle Trask. The number here is 23. The Gators are at home. Mike, what do you think?
I think Florida's had an incredibly lucky season when you consider they played Kentucky without their leading rusher. They played Georgia the week after 4 starters get knocked out on defense. Last week they played Tennessee when 12 guys missed 2 weeks of practice with COVID and their starting quarterback's no longer their starting quarterback. And this week they get LSU amid all these final opt-outs in the program. Things couldn't have lined up any better for Florida. But that's why I think it's a bit of a mirage. I don't think Florida is really the number 2 team in the SEC right now. And I don't think they're that head and shoulders above everybody else. Just a couple of weeks ago, Alabama beat Kentucky by 60. And the next week, Kentucky was a punt return away from leading Florida at halftime in their next game. I'm going to take LSU to cover and make this a good football game. It's an opportunity for immediate vindication or validation for a lot of these talented LSU players. Florida wins, but they don't cover 31-24.
Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a tough line. I think you have to keep coming back to it. 23 points. LSU's bad. Florida's good. I know Florida's going to have some of those some big recruits in the 2021 class in the stands, of course, all on those self-guided visits, of course. I think what Mullen's trying to do is just trying to prep Trask for Heisman numbers. He wants more hype around his program. I think that's going to be enough weight on the accelerator for them to beat LSU by about 25 to 30 points. Give me Florida. Throw all those points LSU's favor. I still like the Gators in this one, and I'm going to throw up now as I say that.
Connor, how about you?
I'm still very upset about what Florida did in the fourth quarter last week, allowing Tennessee to convert multiple fourth downs on that final drive. They're stealing a cover away from me and ultimately my winning record at the moment. So because of that, on general principle, I cannot pick Florida here. This LSU team, I actually thought they put up a fight against Alabama. Alabama was just so much better than everyone else that it didn't really matter. But even without Arik Gilbert, there's still talent there. John Emery Jr., Derek Stingley, Elias Ricks, B.J. Ojolari. I think they're going to find a way to make this closer. And the reality is Florida, as Mike pointed out, has played with its foot a lot this season. And I don't think they're going to be able to blow out LSU in the same manner that Alabama did.
Dog Nation Daily audience agrees. 61% take LSU in this game. Florida's only covered in one of its last three, as some of our panelists, including Connor a moment ago, have kind of alluded to. And while LSU won't be showing up on anybody's top 25 in the near future, they are still a team you will find in Vegas power ratings. Vegas has not completely run away from LSU thus far this season. Some of what you saw against Alabama, an example of that. More of that, though, in the feisty showing they had against Texas A&M in the week prior. This is another one of those games that's I don't love to pick, but for the fun of a contest, I think LSU plus 23 is the right side to be on here. That puts the flow on the side of LSU. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take LSU?
You know, I can't do that. The Tigers just can't stop anybody, you know. So, I mean, there's no way they're going to be able to stop Trask and all his weapons. It's a lot of points to lay. This game has potential to get really ugly really quick. You know, LSU just seems like they've given up on the season. From a gambling perspective, I actually like the first half line in this one, which is Florida by 13. I think they're going to jump out early and get a really big lead. Again, like Bama, I don't think they need a lot of style points in this game. They just need to win and get to the SEC championship game to face Bama. It's a tricky number in this game because LSU, I could see, scoring late in the second half to get a backdoor cover on this. But I'm going to go with Florida.
That is that situation there. How about in the SEC West now for an Auburn team after having lost the Iron Bowl and not standing up at home last Saturday against Texas A&M? They now go to Starkville, Mississippi, where the Bulldogs find themselves 8.5-point home underdogs here. Obviously, both these teams desperately in need of a win, but for Gus Malzahn, some of the hot water he got into for what seemed like lackadaisical comments about the lost Texas A&M. Maybe he needs one even more than first-year coach Mike Leach does. Mike Griffith, how about you with Auburn going to Mississippi State? Bulldogs catching 8.5. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Gus Malzahn is in really hot water. I think that this is a really dangerous game for Gus in his career. And as we saw, Mississippi State can stop the run game, albeit Georgia's run game has not been among, they don't have any of the top 4 or 5 rushers in the league, but still they got a good offensive line. They weren't able to run against Mississippi State. Tank Bigsby might be better than anybody Georgia has in their backfield, but I still think, I'm going with an upset here. I'm going to take Mississippi State in a shocker. It's a home game, and Auburn is coming off a very disappointing loss. A lot of pressure in that building over there. I'm going to take Mississippi State 27-24. Jeff,
what do you think? Outright win call there from Mike Griffith, by the way. But what do you think about the game, Jeff?
Yeah, that's a chesty call right there by Mike Griffith. He's putting a lot of his weight behind the Bulldogs. There's just something about this game that leads me to believe that Auburn's still going to struggle. It leads me to believe that Mike Leach and that team will still be able to score some points no matter what Kevin Steele tries to scheme up. I think Mississippi State's numbers in terms of eligible bodies is only going to get better. I think they've played with 48 and 45, 49 over the last couple of weeks. I like Mississippi State to make this a close ball game. I think the number's right at 8. I think Mississippi State will cover that number, but I don't think they'll win the game.
Connor, how about you?
I feel like this Vegas line is begging people to pick Auburn, but with Mike and with Jeff both picking Mississippi State there, I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to pick Auburn here to cover. I still think they're the more talented team. I think they're going to find a way to do just enough to win. A sort of ugly game, 24-14, I think is somewhere along the lines of there is what this final score will be.
55% of the Dog Nation Daily audience agrees well. They take Auburn too. Probably not a huge surprise. I like Auburn a lot here. I just think that there's a category of SEC team that's above average, and Auburn is certainly the captain of the above average SEC team here. Clearly, Mississippi State is a below average team, and this is what guys like Gus Malzahn do to keep their job. You know, Malzahn accidentally revealed the truth last week that, hey, if you get to 6-4, you've had an okay year, and that's what Malzahn's found a way to do. He's found a way to have okay years. He's not breaking through at the top level of the SEC right now, but he's also not really giving Auburn much of a reason to ever fire him, and this is the kind of win coaches like that get. I just think they're better than Mississippi State. There are a lot of teams that Auburn's not better than, but they are better than Mississippi State. So I do pretty comfortably like Auburn on Saturday. That puts the flow on the side of Auburn. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take Auburn?
I am, even though they let me down last week at home. I'm going to take them. I'm going to go back with them here in this spot. I think in this game they're going to come out early. I think they're going to get a pretty good lead early. I like the first half line in this game. It's Auburn by 3.5.
Ooh.
I think Mississippi State's going to make this a game and they're going to battle back, but I think Auburn's going to do just enough to cover that 8.5.
All right, good stuff all the way around there. All right, let's go with the flow presented by R.S. Andrews. You want to keep the flow going in your home, the heat coming out of your vents, the hot water going from your water heater through the shower where it's supposed to be. R.S. Andrews is certainly the place you want to go for all of that. Just simply find them online at rsandrews.com, and they will take really good care of you. It's a great thing to remember as we head towards the holiday season, as Dari enjoys himself a little bit of a beverage, relaxing here during the week as we record the program. Check out R.S. Andrews online at rsandrews.com. We'll come back to the SEC before we're done with some thoughts on the over-under for Georgia and Missouri. Let's do a couple of top 25 games around the country before we get there. Really, none of these are probably what we thought we'd be hyping up this week. There's no Michigan, Ohio State. Michigan wouldn't have been ranked anyway. But we'll look outside the SEC here for a moment. Miami hosts North Carolina. Hurricanes are a 3-point favorite here in this spot. Mike, what do you think about the Canes and the Tar Heels?
Yeah, some programs can handle success better than others. Miami isn't one of those programs. Right now, they're kind of being projected for the Orange Bowl. It all just looks too convenient and too nice and too clean. Sam Howell in North Carolina beat them last year. They have won there before just a few years ago. Mac Brown doing a great job. That warm weather is going to make everybody feel good on the North Carolina football team. They're going to go in there and upset Miami 27-20.
Jeff, how about you? Miami -3 hosting North Carolina.
Yeah, I think looking at Miami's record this year in the Hurricanes, I don't look. I just don't.
Hold on, since we're all here live doing this together, is that what you were doing on your phone 2 seconds before I called you? Was there by any chance you're doing some cram sessions on Miami just before you were called upon?
No, it was actually, to be completely honest, some of my colleagues are remarking in the text message about a New York Post report regarding treatment protocols after the COVID-19 vaccine. It's kind of hilarious. Look for it yourself. Go forth. Speaking of teams that need a remedy, I just don't think 8-1 Miami is as good. I think that's an illusion. I think that's a mirage for that football team. I like North Carolina. They've played some big teams. They've played Notre Dame tough. I like their quarterback. I like a lot of things going on with North Carolina. Give me the Tar Heels in that game, man. I don't think Miami's going to win this football game, and I think the Tar Heels are going to win this one by maybe 10 to 14 points.
This is very interesting to me. This is not kind of where I thought this was all going. Connor, what do you think?
I really want to go contrarian here and pick Miami again, but I kind of think I'm going to go with North Carolina here. Granted, Miami played really well against Duke a week ago, but Duke stinks this year. Derek King's a good quarterback. It's probably two of the better quarterbacks in the country facing off this week with King and Sam Howell. I think it'll be a lot of points, but I think North Carolina is going to find a way to win. So give me the Tar Heels here.
61% of the Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers take Miami. Brief confession, I've been wrong on North Carolina twice, once on the one side, once on the other. I went against them in an upset bid at one point this season, lost on that. Tried to take them as an upset-minded team against Notre Dame, obviously lost there in that spot. Let me just spend 2 seconds on Miami, though, who I think may have been more disrespected this season than maybe any team in the country related to how the ACC title game was put together. I'm not 100% sure I understand all of this, but I sort of feel like that Miami maybe wasn't given the full credit it was due there in that respect. They have had some opt-outs this week. Blades, for instance, is dealing with a little bit of an after effect of the coronavirus. He's not playing. So they've got maybe a little bit of a focus issue and some health issues they've got to deal with. But largely speaking, they've been good this season. They've ran the ball incredibly well. I think Miami is the best team that no one talks about. So -3 against a UNC team that's I'll take Miami here. The flow is, though, very Carolina blue painted here for the moment. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the Tar Heels?
Yeah, I'm leaning North Carolina here as well. I think it's going to be close. It's fun. I think it'd be pretty good game to watch. But in games like this, if I can get points on something I think is a coin flip, I'll take the points.
Very interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. A lot of folks on North Carolina, more than I would have realized. In the Big Ten, we've got a top 25 matchup. It is Iowa hosting Wisconsin. This is Mike, is this a trophy game? Is there a trophy for Iowa, Wisconsin?
I don't recall it.
This isn't the Floyd of Roseberry. That one's already happened, right? No, but not Roseberry. The Floyd of Rosedale. The pig. This is not the pig game.
Might be. I don't recall. I don't recall, honestly.
Don't act like you didn't spend 2 decades in the Big Ten.
I only covered Michigan State 4 years, and neither one of these teams were in contention. I was covering Big Ten title games, watching Urban Meyer lose to.
Didn't Michigan State play Iowa in a Big Ten title game?
They did. It came down to the last minute. But that was Michigan State. It wasn't Wisconsin.
This has got to be a trophy game. Nonetheless, Iowa's getting 1.5 points at home after Wisconsin really looked pretty awful against Indiana last week.
It's the Brass Bowl trophy.
The Brass Bowl. Thank you, Dari.
Brass Bowl. Yeah,
B-U-L-L. Brass Bowl.
Yes.
Well, that sounds awesome. For some reason, that doesn't seem very Midwestern to me, but pretty good all the way around. So there you go. The battle for the Brass Bowl, Dari. There at Kinnick Stadium, the Hawkeyes are getting 1.5 points.
Yeah, Iowa's won 5 straight games. Wisconsin, the Dairy State really let me down against Indiana last week. I'm not going to cry over spilt milk, but I do think Iowa's going to win.
Bad. That's not bad, Dar. I mean, Mike, that's not bad.
I'm going to take Iowa 24-20 over Wisconsin for whatever trophy they're playing for in the West Division of the Big Ten.
Jeff, what do you think?
So, good point bringing up the Brass Bowl there, Dari. But I will report that although this rivalry is over 100 years old, I think that trophy only came about around 10 years ago, Brandon.
Is that right?
So if you're missing it, short attention span theater, if you didn't recall it, there's not going to be any grainy clips of Wisconsin coaches going against Iowa coaches and running away with the Brass Bowl trophy.
2004.
Oh, there you go. So for me, I like Wisconsin. I don't think I need to beat this point. In I think Mike was right to bring up. I don't think that Wisconsin has lost to Iowa in about 5 years. I don't even know if there are any Badgers in the state of Iowa for some reason, which makes me think weirdly about this game. Give me Wisconsin to win this game. I think Wisconsin wins this game, especially because of stellar quarterback play going away.
Connor, what do you think?
The Floyd of Rosedale is between Iowa and Minnesota.
There you go.
The Paul Bunyan Axe is between Wisconsin and Minnesota. The Little Brown Jug is Minnesota, Michigan.
There you go.
I hear though I'm going to take Iowa. This is actually, I think, the best team in the Big Ten West this season. They were a hard luck loser against, I believe, Northwestern and Purdue at the beginning of the season. 1-score games that if they're playing those games now, I think Iowa finds a way to win. And to be quite frank, Wisconsin has just not looked good. 7 points against Northwestern, 6 points against Indiana. This offense with Graham Mertz is just not what a lot of people thought it would be. So give me Iowa here to win.
Yeah, Dog Nation of the audience disagrees. 55% take Wisconsin, but I think Connor's right. And I really don't think you need to know much more about this game than that. Wisconsin's just secretly just not very good. And so therefore, this is from a gambling standpoint, I think a pretty good game because You're only getting Iowa. You're getting Iowa and also getting a 1.5 to go along with that. I'll also add this for free. I secretly think that Kirk Ferentz is the Gus Malzahn of the SEC in that he does just enough. And this is one of those games in which he has a very good chance to do just enough against a Wisconsin team that has been exposed as of late. So there is that. I'll take Iowa. I guess the flow is on the side of Iowa. Do I want to go with the flow and take Iowa?
Yeah, this is for the Heartland Trophy, I think is what they call that brass bowl.
There you go.
Wisconsin.
I love the Heartland, so I'm all about this.
Yeah, right in the Heartland. So
not like you coastal elites.
That's right. So Wisconsin didn't look good last.
Look
last
at this!
week.
Listen, Darius, he's the sponsor of the show. He's working 10 times harder than any of y'all are. He sent me a picture of the brass bull. Let me see if I can get that thing on the screen without giving anybody's phone number away here. Look at that. There's the brass bull right there. Look at that. That's awesome. That's a great trophy. It looks like something you'd see on like the side of the road going to Panama City, but it's still pretty cool.
Or in Arkansas. Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah.
Or going through the Heartland. Or going through the Heartland, Brandon, as you pointed out.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
go ahead, Art.
Yeah, it's all right. Wisconsin, I mean, they only scored 6 points last week. It seems like they've owned Iowa, over the past decade or so. So I'm going to take Iowa here at home. I like their running game more than Wisconsin's right now, and I think their defense is good enough to keep the Badgers in check.
That is that. Good stuff. Other top 25 matchup in the Pac-12. Now, there are undefeated teams. I believe the Pac-12 are not playing this week. I think Colorado may be one of those. USC is still undefeated, I think. It's very weird how little I know about the Pac-12 right now. But the ranked teams in the Pac-12 that are playing, Washington going to Oregon. Ducks are 6-point favorites in Eugene. Mike Griffith, what do you want to say about this one?
Well, I mean, obviously Oregon isn't everything they were quacked up to be at the start of the year. But
Oh, wow.
I get a little daffy sometimes. Sorry, guys. Take Oregon to win this game, even though they've lost their last 2 games in upset fashion. They have won 2 straight in this series and 14 out of 16. I believe that's correct. So I'm going to take Oregon to win this game 30-20 and cover the spread.
What do you think, Jeff?
I think we're going on 6 points right here. I always laugh whenever we've got Mike cracking jokes, and I'm in between Connor, our resident Pac-12 expert, when nobody even knows if that conference is existing anymore right now.
Well, first of all, Connor, I am right. The undefeated teams of the Pac-12 are Colorado and USC, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
Did Utah ever play a game?
Yes, they've played, I think, 3 games, 4 games maybe.
Good for them.
And they're supposed to play Colorado on Friday.
Oh, they are playing. That's a good game.
Yeah.
We should be picking. That's the game we should be picking. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. First and foremost, does anybody know about any trophy names for this game? Does everybody's cool on that one? For me, my pick will come very fast and with the flow. When in doubt, go with the team with the better roster. Oregon has better players. The more they play, the more seasoned they'll get. The pass rush. I gotta like the Ducks in this one, and that's all I have to say about that.
What about you, Connor?
So as the resident Pac-12 expert here, the winner of this game wins the Pac-12 North. However, Washington paused team activities today. So there is some question about whether or not this game will be played potentially. But,
this is sort of like when the defense jumps off sides. You just get to make whatever pick you want to, and then just hope it turns out okay.
I've got a free play here. Give me Washington here. Oregon has been really disappointing these last 2 weeks, losing to Oregon State and Cal teams. They are more talented than. Whereas this Washington team, they've fallen behind early against Utah, Stanford, but they've played really well in the second half. They can certainly cover that 6-point number, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them win outright this week.
Dog Nate's Daily audience blindly taking the favorite as they are wont to do, 72% on the side of the Ducks here. I think that it's pretty simple. The way in which people were kind of taking UNC a moment ago, flyer plus the points. I think the flyer plus the points here is Washington plus the 6. Jeff referenced the better roster with Oregon. That's true. But Washington's not necessarily typical Pac-12 when it comes to, some of the overall, roster strength anyway. If you give me the Huskies plus 6 points, that's at least enough value to make maybe at least think about watching the game. So I'll take the Huskies. I'll take them plus the 6. However, the flow is on the side of Oregon. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take Oregon?
Oregon's dominated the Huskies. The Ducks are 13-2-1 against the spread in the last 16 games.
Good number.
Against the Huskies. Washington has only won twice at Oregon since 1996. Both these teams are young. Oregon does have way more talent. However, I'm going to take the points in the Huskies. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Washington will do enough to keep it under 6.
Yeah, that's value shopping right there. That's what you got to do all the way around. Pretty good stuff. All right, before we close out, back to the SEC, back to UGA, on the road at Missouri. After going over in its last game against South Carolina, point total rests at 52 for Georgia and Missouri on Saturday. Mike Griffith, what do you think? 52, over under.
Yeah, it's a lot. I know there's no Army-Navy pick, so I've got to as a veteran, I've got to insert a picking. I got to pick Army over Navy just to throw that out there, that Army will beat Navy. That's important. Doesn't happen all the time.
What's the spread on that?
Yeah, what is the number, Mike?
I think it's 4. Yeah, I believe it's 4 points. So I'm going to take.
I love the game.
I love that.
By the way,
I like Army.
It will be for the first time in decades at the bend of the Hudson again here this weekend. Back on campus for the first time in many a moon.
I think there's a New Testament to the book of Kirby on offense lately, as he
I love
talks
how
about.
he just gets right back into the Georgia Missouri thing. No small talk, just right back to it.
Well, he talked about, we talk about the end all be all. Kirby says he hath to say it all comes down to points, and he now says explosion trumps balance. So, from the scripture of the book of Kirby, I anticipate being a bit of a prophet here, that there'll be more offense for the Bulldogs. Hallelujah, the Georgia fans say. And Georgia and Missouri take the over in that game. Kirby's ready to think offensively now, especially maybe with some certain players that could be out there taking a look to see how he might utilize tight ends and receivers.
What do you think, Jeff?
Oh man, Mike, you said a lot there. You got your transfer portal news in there. You got some biblical stuff from the pulpit. Definitely would not be Old Testament Kirby. It would have to be New Testament Kirby. Man, guys, here's what I think about this game. I feel like this is a 42-24 game, 42-28 game. I'd probably take 60 if the number was all the way up to 60. You give Georgia a running game back with Kendall Milton. I think Georgia is going to be very sporty up front, minus Trey Hill, and putting either Warren Erickson or Cedric Von Pron Granger in there as well. Giving Jordan Davis on that line again, and all of a sudden, Missouri they like to hammer away with Roundtree. That's not going to be very effective at all. I don't think it's going to be the stylish 41-7 win where Georgia announces its presence with authority for the college football rankings and solace for the season. But I do see Georgia getting this number by a comfortable margin. Like I said earlier, but I think about a 17 to 20 point win is what it feels like here. I think this number goes way over.
What do you think, Connor?
I'll take the over here. I don't think Missouri's defense is all that good. Georgia could at least eat up 35, 40 of those points that you need there. Missouri's offense, they're led by O'Connor. They've got enough competency there to get to, I think, 14, 17 points. You saw South Carolina do that. And before I throw it back to you, BA, do you prefer the bend on the Hudson, or are you more of a Banks of the Brazos River guy?
I do like the Banks of the Brazos River. Is it Lane Stadium? No, it's McLean Stadium, I think.
McLean Stadium.
Yeah, very, very beautiful stadium on the banks of the Brazos. So the bend of the Hudson, the banks of the Brazos, we're here for all the colloquial terms for rivers next to stadiums. However, have you ever seen the aerial shot of West Point? Beautiful, beautiful part of the Hudson Valley region there. Beautiful.
And Dog Nation Daily Audience.
Yeah, Dog Nation Daily Audience. How about 2-1 margin, 67%? Do take the under here. I think it's supposed to rain on Saturday. There's at least
might snow.
50% chance might snow. For a Georgia team that's not regularly playing games in the 50s anyway, just a hint of weather is enough for me to go under here. I don't mean to be a wet blanket, no pun intended, but that's enough for me. I'll take the under when you factor that into a Georgia team that's not quite proven that it's an offensive juggernaut as of yet. That's all I need to know. I'll take the under. The flow, those on the side of the over. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the over?
No, I'm going under too. I think the weather's gonna play a factor into the game planning of both teams. It's gonna be cold. It's gonna be rainy. Possibly some snow flurries at that game. I think it's more like 31-16 score.
Okay. Well, that'd be tough. Interesting stuff all the way around there on that as Georgia gets ready to take on Missouri on Saturday. Guys, great job. Live edition, or at least plausibly live edition of our program here today. Fun to hear everybody's picks in real time. I wish all of you the best of luck, and we will look forward to chatting about these again very soon as well.
Yeah, awesome.
And as we say goodbye to the audience, we'll also remind you to make sure you check out RS Andrews online at rsandrews.com for your air conditioning, heating, plumbing, and electric needs. Enjoy the games. Watch them in comfort and style because of a home that's got a heating system that's keeping you warm what it's supposed to, and everything else working the way that it's supposed to there as well. rsandrews.com can give you the peace of mind on all of that. Find RS Andrews there online at rsandrews.com. And, of course, we will see you back here again next week for Go With The Flow, presented by RS Andrews. We'll look forward to talking to you then, everybody.